Slacktail Squad, assemble.
I'm in the Slaptail studio, and it's pretty hot in here because I'm surrounded by windows.
Well, did you ever think of opening one?
No, because it's hot outside. In the 80s, no, like in the 80s outside. Why would I open it outside?
Well, okay, so you don't have a breeze going, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it's that this particular room, of course, in the wintertime, it's cold, and in the summertime, it's hot because it's mostly windows. 2 of the walls out of the 4 are basically windows. So, more permeable to the heat and cold.
Okay, so
it's science.
It's science.
Don't make me explain science to you.
Okay, so if you got rid of the walls, then you would have windows, right? Is that what you're saying? So that's the one thing I'm taking is like, why doesn't someone open up a window to let the breeze through, or at least let the air in and out, unless it affects the mic?
Well, because it's hotter outside than it is in here.
Yes, but you're in a shaded area, basically. You've got a roof over your head, it's shaded, so basically you're sitting under a magnifying glass. Basically, let's put the sign.
My roof is not a window. I've got the shades down so that the sun does not come in.
So if you open up the window, though, I mean,
it'd still be hot as fuck if I open up the window. It's hot as fuck outside. It's cooler here inside.
So once again, you're telling me there is no breeze today, because if you had the windows open, the breeze would come in.
There's no breeze outside either. It's hot as fuck outside.
That's all you had to say. My God.
Have you not been outside? Have you not been outside?
Not yet. Not yet. I plan to later.
It's hot outside. It's not breezy outside.
Right.
Very sunny.
That's all you had to say. Why do people?
Why don't you understand? You don't understand science. Apparently, I'm like,
I understand science.
If it's cooler inside, why would I open the window to let hot air into my air-conditioned home?
Okay, first of all, you didn't mention AC. You didn't mention it was
hot.
Why
would I have to mention that? Why would I have to mention that?
Because it would be cooler if
you had the AC 1920.
Running. My God, you're just argumentative. It's the smartest thing to do. It's the smartest thing to do if you're in a hot room and open a window.
If you were in a home, this is the Slaptail Squad, by the way. I'm the Beaveman dealing with the Ronz.
Hey.
Who doesn't understand some basic scientific principles.
I understand scientific.
Let's see. Let's check the weather. It's a Sunday. It's a nice Sunday. It's June 28th here in Michigan. Currently, the temperature outside is 82 degrees.
All right.
82 degrees
difference
sunny.
Where I'm at, but yeah, okay. It's 84.
How many degree difference?
2 degrees. I'm 84.
Oh, okay. So it's 82 degrees here.
Mm-hmm.
It is 76 inside my home with central air.
Wow.
And you want me to open a window to make it hotter in my warmer environment.
Well, first of all, you didn't tell me you had AC. Now, see, that's the other thing. As long as we're going to go off on a rant.
Not 1920.
So. As long as I'm going to go off on a rant here. One thing I don't like is when people talk to me and they leave out bits of information that I should be aware of. They're like,
why should you be aware? Why should you be aware?
Well, it's crucial.
One would assume that I'm using some sort of cooling in my home.
Exactly. I understand that. And I know I've been in your studio where you can't run a fan because one, it'll affect the mic. So I figure, open up a window, right? I don't think I've ever been in your house with the AC on. You live in a pretty comfortable environment. I know that, but one would think if you can't have AC into that particular room because of the mic sensitivity, you would open a damn window.
No, there's central air running throughout the entire home. But as I explained to you previously, this particular room is made primarily of 2 walls of glass, which is permeable to all temperatures. So in the wintertime,
glass. I understand that.
Wintertime, it is colder than the rest of the house, and in the summertime, it is warmer than the rest of the house. And we keep the shades down to help block a little bit of that so that the sun is not blaring on me, making it even worse. So once again, if I opened a window into a hotter environment than I'm in right now, it would make the room hotter.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Then, not only that, it would also make my central air kick on prematurely and try to cool down the environment because I'm warming it up.
Understood.
Then I would
Understood.
be wasting energy.
And you didn't tell me that part. I didn't think you had central air.
Well,
I
again,
never take that
because
for
it's not
granted.
1910. I do
Well,
have such.
some people don't have central air. They have ACs in their units, houses.
But
You know,
it's some sort of cooling thing.
well, I have two ACs. I mean, I have one in my studio and then one in my bedroom. Right.
So you got some sort of cooling unit. You run into some people who don't have any
I
type
love
of
how you try to make this sound so damn fucking scientific. So you have a cooling unit?
Well, because I don't have air
Is that a cooling
conditioning.
unit?
I don't have air conditioning. I have central air.
Okay.
Anyway, as I was going to say,
Yeah.
to be in somewhat of your benefit, I was going to say, yes, there are some people that do not have cooling units. This is really a compelling conversation so far for the Slaptail Squad.
It is.
Like my parents don't have a cooling unit. Only in their bedroom, they've got an air conditioning unit. But the
Okay.
rest of the house is hot as fuck. And so they open all the windows and they only turn the air conditioning on, I think, when they go to bed.
I keep my AC running almost 24/7 sometimes just for the simple reason I have my better half, my wife, menopausing. So if she hot flashes, I mean, I think for all scientific purposes, I think hot flashes are melting the polar ice cap. I think global warming is because there's a bunch of women out there hot flashing. I really do, and I'm going to pay hell for that comment. But since I can outrun people when I'm scared, I can deal with it.
I think it's also important to note that you're not a scientist. And I'm not a scientist.
Well,
And
you are.
That particular comment that the Ronz made has no scientific basis. But this is an idiot podcast, so
I don't know. Yeah, I thought you were a scientist of some sorts. Right?
I do not. I don't consider myself a scientist.
Oh, you don't consider yourself a scientist?
No, because scientists, in my opinion, are those who are out there doing some research for the greater good, contributing to the scientific community, and I'm not one of those people.
I think you are. But then again,
I'm not.
why don't you think you're contributing to society? Are you just a?
I didn't say I wasn't contributing to society. What I said was, I'm not contributing to the scientific community. That's what I said.
Yeah, you are. You've been.
This ought to be interesting. Why am I contributing to the scientific community?
Because you're working with the coronavirus, the COVID, and you might,
I'm not working with it. I'm not working with it.
Well,
the president might be working with it. I'm not working with it.
So whatever I say, you're just going to countermand with something.
Well, I'm not working with the coronavirus. That would.
Well,
that would
are
mean
some of your?
That would mean there's some sort of a partnership, some sort of a.
Wow, in the scientific term, you are correct. My gosh, you are correct. Right? In the scientific term, you are correct.
Why are you so angry today?
I'm not angry. I'm just like
such an angry person today.
I am not angry. I'm just trying to make some sense of how you are so, down, or I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. And every time I can delay it or something, you're like, no,
I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist. I have the utmost respect for scientists, and I am not a scientist.
Well, you don't think of yourself as a scientist.
I'm definitely not a scientist. You know who's a scientist? I'll give you an example of a scientist. My sensei and his wife are both scientists.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think they work in with, what's the pathology they work with? Necropathology or something like that. But yeah, you're right. But they're both doctors too, I think. Or I know your sensei's a doctor.
Yeah, his wife is too. She's a different researchist type. Does a lot of stuff with primate science, all that good stuff.
Fantastic. So she can relate to us at some point.
Professor also. So
really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh yes, those two I consider scientists. Myself, no. I am a healthcare provider.
Yeah, but you're at the top of your field, though. Let's face it. You got the DR at the end of that. So in order to have that DR at the end of it, or at the beginning, you have to be somewhat of a scientist. You really do. I mean, what's the difference between that and being a science and engineer, a scientist in engineering. It's the study and the time you put into it.
Yes, I can understand what you're saying.
Well, thank you. We'll leave it at that then.
Yes.
So let's move on.
However,
Oh, there we go.
I don't do any type of research. I'm not furthering anything in my particular field.
I
There
wouldn't
are
say
people
that at
who
all.
do that. There are people who do that. I'm just not one of them.
I wouldn't say that at all, because the people you deal with, right? If you notice that there's a difference in the case studies that you've been doing, right? Or the patients you've been doing, you can mark it on a chart and relate that, and then relay it to somebody like, hey, I see a trend here.
Yes,
So-
that would be true if I did that, which I don't.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't. No,
Yes,
I don't think you understand how this works.
I don't have to.
No,
I'm the
yeah,
Ron.
yeah, you're right. You don't understand. I don't think you understand how it works.
No,
So
I understand.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an because,
Okay.
all right.
I'm still waiting on that.
I have been seeing, in the patient population that I've been working with, I have seen that a good percentage of this specific minority group has a large incidence of heartburn, reflux.
Okay. All right.
A large percentage of them are testing for positive for what we call Helicobacter pylori infection, which is an organism that grows in our stomach, kind of embeds itself in the wall of the stomach, and gives us these heartburn symptoms and can cause you to have ulcers, et cetera, et cetera. And if it's left untreated, it can lead to, in some people, it can get stomach cancer. So just very basic, right?
See, once again, that's a scientific study that you're doing.
Okay, listen. Now I'm not doing it, but I'm not doing a scientific study. This is where I'm going to break it down to you for how a scientific study gets done with medicine.
Okay.
I'm seeing this trend. Okay. I'm not reporting this trend to any researchers for them to do any research.
Not until they pay you the big bucks.
No, you don't get big bucks for research. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not doing that. If I had time and I said, oh, hey, you know what? I've been seeing this trend. Then I could contact some nurse researchers and say, hey, this is a trend I'm seeing. Would you like to do a prospective analysis of our charts? Or would you like to start doing set up some sort of a research study on your own? But then I would be contributing to scientific research, but now I'm not. I'm just seeing a trend in treating people. I don't have
that's
time.
The start. That's
yeah,
the
but
start.
I don't have any plans to do any of the rest of it. That's what I'm saying.
So you're just gonna let him die?
So I'm not.
You're just morbid.
I'm not gonna die. I'm still treating the condition. I'm just saying you see a trend. That's how research questions.
So you're in bed with big pharma then?
No.
No.
Definitely not. Definitely not in bed with big pharma. So again, that's what I'm saying. I am seeing a trend in something, but the next step would be me to speak with research colleagues and say, hey, have you seen this? And then you have to go through all these other steps that I have no interest in doing. That's what I'm saying. There are people who do this as their job, who are researchers. I don't do that. I'm not a PhD. In nursing, there's a couple different doctorates that you can have. One is the Doctor of Nursing Science, which is kind of the precursor or the pre-degree, the degree that was in existence before mine was. There's a Doctor of Nursing Practice, which is the highest clinical doctorate that you can have. In other words, those are the people who are out there treating patients, seeing patients. That's the highest degree of clinical practice. And then there's Doctors of Philosophy in nursing. Those educational nursing doctors also. But the Doctors of Philosophy, their doctoral program is specifically focused on research.
So if you're a doctor of philosophy, is it, I think you're sick, but you can get better if you think about being well?
The majority of the people that you see with doctorates are PhDs.
Okay.
They do research. My doctorate was not focused on research. It was focused on clinical practice. It's the same thing with the medical doctors and the doctors of osteopathy and the chiropractic doctors. They don't have PhDs, the majority of them. So they're not scientists. They're clinical practitioners. The PhDs are the ones who went to school to learn about research. Not saying the other people won't do research. I'm just saying that's not their focus.
Okay.
It's not my focus. That's why I'm saying I'm not a scientist. Much as I would love to be one, I'm not one. I don't do any type of scientific.
How close are you to being a scientist then?
I'm not, because I don't have time for that shit. When you're you go to work for a 12-hour shift and you're supposed to have a lunch and you don't get one because you're seeing patients nonstop, I don't even have time to have that as a consideration in my day.
So you don't want to be a scientist then?
No,
Right?
it's not part of my job. That's why I keep telling you. You're not listening.
I am listening.
Trying to fuel a fire that's unnecessary. Kind of like the last time we were like, why don't you just fix this? I'm like, because I know my limitations. My job is basically reduced to a technician. I go in and I'm like, oh, this is your symptoms? Oh, okay, this is how I would treat it. Here you go. Here's your treatment. See you later. Is it medicine the way that I would want to practice medicine? Absolutely not. That's why I hate it. So I've said that for years. I'm like, I hate my job.
So if you could, what would make your job a lot better for yourself?
Not doing it. That's what would make my job a lot better. I don't want to do this job. That's what I just said. I don't think you didn't listen again. I'm like,
No, I did.
There's
What
nothing that would make this job better.
Okay, that's the answer.
Not doing this job would make this job better.
That's the answer.
That's the only thing.
Okay.
There is no ideal condition for this job. It's all the American people in general who have such a huge faith in the healthcare system. I'm like, you do realize it's all based on, it's like a recipe. If you come in with these symptoms, oh, here, take this drug. You come in with these symptoms, oh, here, take this drug. Oh, that drug doesn't work, take this drug. Oh, you had side effects from this drug, take this drug for the side effects for this drug.
Are they good drugs, though?
No.
Okay.
Moving on.
So one of the things that I've noticed is that something you pointed out from last week's podcast is that we tend to get too serious on topics. So I wanted to be serious just for a little bit and then kind of move on, as you could say, move on. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to attempt to not be so serious. Now, as you would say when we first started doing these podcasts together, you and I, the Ronz, you need to be more organic. There's that word. I know I butcher to death, but I agree with you. So I was looking up on certain things and how to make your life more productive and everything. I like TED Talks. I love TED Talks. And one of them was how to inject humor into your everyday workplace to make yourself a little bit better. And I just watched one, and it was, did you know you're more productive when your workplace, there's humor at your workplace? And I was astounded by that.
You were astounded by that? Oh, no,
yeah.
I'd say that's a given.
And you make more money if you're more humorous, right? It shows that, and you can handle more problems like that. And I'm like, okay, I thought that was a fantastic thing. In fact, if you go on YouTube, there are a lot of videos out there, and I wanted to be more humorous. Now, I don't think I should be humorous at a funeral. Like, well, guess there's a job opening where this guy works at now. So I don't want to be like that, but I want to be a better person. So that's my goal. And one of my goals is I don't yell anymore. I don't want to yell. Right? Unless there's a fire or something really bad's about to happen, I don't want to yell, right? And I've attempted not to yell for the last 3 to 4 weeks. I will ball up my fists. I will yell internally, but I will not yell.
What were you yelling about before?
Everything and anything. As an introvert, and I don't know if you'd say I have PSTD.
I definitely wouldn't say that because it's PTSD, unless you've got some other new condition that we're not aware
of. Well, I
of.
could also be dyslexic too. That's a given. I was dyslexic for the longest time. Still am slightly. But the other thing is also, as having anxiety attacks and more dealing with them, is how do I make myself not be so serious about things, right? How do I step away from being serious? And I think that's a big thing in our society. And I thank you for having the Slaptail Squad for doing stuff like this, right? Because I love doing this every week with you because it allows me to vent. And sometimes I thought I was taking the moderation of being too serious, or let's talk about something serious for a second. I'm like, okay, that's great. And then you say, move on, we're done with that. So I didn't want to do that anymore, right? I wanted to be more humorous and make this podcast a lot better. As you filter the ratings towards me, I thought, we're going down. Why? Because I'm not a complete moron. I thought I need to be more, because my my lovely wife would listen to the podcast, and she's like, "That's one of your more somber, serious ones. You need to get back to the basis and cause trouble." I'm like,
Exactly.
Okay, we can do that.
All right. Well, as you had said before the podcast, or during the podcast, or while we were talking about the podcast,
whatever.
We have now got a staff writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. All right.
Yay.
So what does that mean? Well, my niece is going to school.
It means nepotism.
She just finished her associate's degree amid all this junk and trying to figure out where she's going to go for her 4-year, but she's studying journalism. So I said, "Hey, it's summertime. Why don't you do some writing for the podcast?" Of course, she's listened to the podcast. I'm like, why don't you
think of it?
Well, of course, she loves our podcast. Who doesn't love our podcast? If you listen to our podcast, you should love it, right?
I agree.
Or not like it and just listen to it anyway.
I agree.
And my instructions to her were, why don't you go out there, check out some news stories, write a little clip about stuff that you think might be interesting for us, and kind of bizarre would be better. I don't really want anything I don't really want anything that everybody else is doing. Just stuff that we can talk about. Have fun with it. The instructions I should have given her, which I gave her after I read her first submission, which is pretty good, was to look at the world like we do, and feel free to report these news clippings to us.
Do you think that's wise to have the people look through the world like we do? This is the podcast. We let them once a week, not every day. That's a bad thing happening.
While she's researching our news articles for the podcast. Not necessarily all throughout her life, but do you ever look at something and say, how you see people with the bracelets that say, "What would Jesus do?" What would Jesus do? Right? You've got those.
Okay.
So just the same thing with us. Look at the news, write out these little news briefs for us to do on the podcast. But look at it like I would look at it, and maybe even just feel free to throw your own personal comments in parentheses there, just for me to laugh about. Let's read the first news story from our new staff writer, Emerald Fimbres from West Covina, California.
She's out in California.
Down in California. May remember West Covina from certain TV shows as My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
No, I don't. But if you want me to say I will, I will.
I didn't mean just you. I meant the whole listening audience.
Okay,
she used to live in, you might remember this one, Ronz. She used to live in San Dimas.
Dude, Bill and Ted are making a third movie. Did you see the trailer yet?
Yes, I did.
I thought it was cool. But I only have one thing. Keanu Reeves. I love Keanu Reeves and his acting, but he just got done with the John Wick movies, and his haircut looks like he's still John Wick.
Well, it kind of sounds like John Wick in it also.
Well, yeah, it's his voice. But the thing is, I'm waiting for him to go up to someone and bitch slap them and stab them with a pencil as Bill and Ted, right?
Probably not going to happen.
It's like, dude. Okay, I hope not.
I mean, his co-star sounds just like an older version of his earlier character, so he did a good job there.
Okay.
But he hasn't been doing a million different movies like Keanu Reeves has, so.
What's his name? Edward Winters? I think he's been directing. He directed a movie called Freaks, I think. And I guess it got really good reviews. But it's one of those things where, where do you go with your acting career, right? What else? Did you know Pauly Shore was up for the other part of the movie?
What part?
Keanu Reeves' part, and he didn't get it.
Oh, thank God. That would have been, yeah. No, I think what we got was good. We'll see how they pull this one off.
Edward Winters is a director, right? He does a lot of directing.
Like right? Anything that we would have seen?
Let's see. He did the video of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Taste the Pain, Super Ninjas, Kirby Buckets. It looks like he does a lot of documentaries.
Oh, nice.
Just odds and ends. I mean, unless you keep up with him. He did Ben 10 if you're a kid or somebody like that. Oh,
yeah. I saw those.
Jimmy Kimmel Live. So unless you keep up with them, I mean,
All right, so we've plugged San Dimas and Bill and Ted.
San Dimas,
We're
yes, we have.
excited for them to come back. Actually, one of the first times I went to visit them in California, they were living in San Dimas at the time, and I had my nieces take me around through San Dimas, and we went to a Circle K, and I was taking pictures outside the Circle K. And they still had phone booths then, so I took a picture of a phone booth outside the Circle K in San Dimas. Mm-hmm. Took a picture of San Dimas high school football, and my little nieces were like, "Why is this so funny for you?" I'm like, "You don't get it." And they're like, "No." I'm like, "You guys have never seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, have you?" And they're like, "No." But of course, they're like 16, anywhere between 16 to 20 some years younger than me. So
of course.
Anyway, it was fun for me. I had a good time. Whatever. But here is her first submission to us here for the Slaptail Squad. Here's a bit of the news.
Do we need to do like noise intro, like beep, 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 or something like that?
No, I don't think
now over to the Beaveman for today's news. Yellow paint still on coffee cups.
Disneyland delays reopening day.
On
June 26th, 2020, Disneyland announced on their news website that they were going to delay their previously announced park reopening, which was set for July 17th of 2020. The decision came after the state of California decided the guidelines for theme park reopening would not be released until after July 4th. Unions within Disney. Now that's scary. Disney got unions.
Okay.
Wrote letters to why what?
Why wouldn't they?
I don't know. Union. This is a union state, Michigan. Big on unions. Okay. I wouldn't suspect that Disney would need to have a union if it's supposed to be the happiest place on earth for people and to work. You would think that they would have isn't the Disney model what a lot of businesses use in order to have a good productive business?
You should read behind the scenes on Disney.
You should read it.
I did. I did. In my random thoughts out there, I do read a lot of stuff. And when I want to find out about something, if something seems too happy, it's not happy.
Unions Disney wrote letters to Gavin Newsom informing him they were not in full support of reopening without answers for health and safety protocols for employees and guests. So this is where unions do come in handy, because if something isn't right, then you've got a union to look over you. I mean, you got to pay them, obviously. But, for example, where I'm at right now, no union. And are they doing things that they're supposed to be doing as mandated by the governor? They are not. And I don't have a union. Previously, the Coalition of Resort Labor Unions and Unite Here Local 11, Unite Here, Local 11 planned a caravan protest on June 27 that would circle the closed parks and encourage their 17,000 members to attend in order to call attention to employee safety. So their plan was to make a caravan and circle the parks with 17,000 members. What do you think about that? Here's what go ahead and tell me if you had any particular thoughts on that. I'll tell you what my first thought was.
The one thing I'd like to realize is Alex Winter of Bill and Ted was born on the 10-year anniversary of the opening of Disneyland. So there's a tie-in to the movie for San Dimas. But, the thing is, how do you keep your people safe? Really? We're watching the COVID.
Okay, well, that wasn't my thought, so I'm going to stop you there because you're clearly going to get serious.
No, I'm not going to get serious. I think it's just plain stupid. You want to endanger your staff and people from around the world? You're looking at a hot spot. Now, unless you're willing to go full apocalyptic and let people roam the grounds with guns and,
they didn't say they were doing that. That's what they said, that they're closing the parks. So they didn't have to go through with their plan to have a caravan.
Well, so much for the apocalyptic nightmare, then. Okay.
My thought here was what I thought as soon as I read this was their plan was interesting, but because have you been to Disneyland or Disney World?
No, not at all.
Okay, so when you go there, they always shut down. There's streets. It looks like a town. It's kind of like a little town, and there's lots of streets running through little cobblestone streets. And during the day, several times throughout the day, they have different types of parades. And they'll have like parades with like bands, and they'll have floats with the princesses going by on the different floats and things like that. So when they said,
did your little princess wave,
they did a little princess wave.
Sort of like down in Alabama when they have parades.
So when I saw that they said that their plan was to get all of their members together and have a protest by doing a caravan, all I could think of was all these little characters doing a 17,000 member like like Princess Jasmine and Cinderella going by on little floats and stuff, and there's 17,000 people of like little dwarves, and that would have been hilarious. But of course, they didn't have to do that.
So I have a question. Why did you say little dwarves?
Because there's big dwarves and little dwarves.
Really? So it's not redundant.
No.
I repeat, it is not redundant.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Little dwarves.
So they didn't have to do that anyway.
It's like
a reopening date has not been determined, although Disney said they would wait for government officials and unions' approval before reopening, which is good. Disney later announced that both their attractions, here's a little interesting aside note. Disney later announced that both their attractions of Splash Mountain in California and Florida will be rethemed to the animated movie Princess and the Frog. I thought that was really interesting because Disney's trying to play to the current protests.
How so?
The Princess and the Frog. Have you not seen The Princess and the Frog?
Oh, okay. I was thinking more of a pandemic shutdown, but yes, I understand what you're saying now. All I could think of when you mentioned The Princess and the Frog was the current place where that was the fairy tale was supposedly, came up with. I was thinking it was a cesspool of a swamp down in the bayou, and I thought, well, that's a pandemic breeding ground.
Well, it wasn't. It's set in New Orleans, The Princess and the Frog.
And if you've ever been down there, it's mosquito and alligator ridden or crocodile ridden or whatever it is.
Well, not like in New Orleans. But yeah, in Louisiana, there's a lot of places, but New Orleans isn't exactly swampy.
Have you ever seen what they did after Katrina?
Have you been down there after Katrina?
No.
Yeah, all right, then shut the fuck up then.
But I've seen stuff on the internet.
You know it's true. I'm like, no, but have you? Well, no, but yes, we've all seen pictures. No, I thought it was kind of interesting that they would take that moment to say, oh, by the way, but we've done this. I just thought that was playing to the crowd a bit too much.
All right, fair enough. I won't play to the crowd. I'll play to my own beat.
That's also good.
I like that.
So I guess thank you, Disneyland and Disney in general, for taking care of your people and making sure that it's going to be safe, which will thus ensure, hopefully, the safety of other people as they go back to the parks. But as I've been saying this whole time, and everybody thinks that we're all crazy, that it's not over and it's going to resurge. And what's happening now? Which is what I've been saying for a while, and some other people have been saying also, like, let's see what happens in July and August. Well, what's going to happen in July and August? It's already happening now.
4th of July?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I tried to mention that 5 minutes ago. You told me to shut the fuck up, so I won't mention it.
What is it you want to mention?
Well, because I want to go out, but I'm, we're seeing a certain spike in everything, right? Because people are getting out there. And back to the Disney Caravan or whatever it is, they should see the current trend. Everything is starting to open up and just spike. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm just not ready to die yet. Maybe in a few weeks, after we see how our numbers go in the podcast, but no, I don't like to be around people that I know are going to, be infected.
No,
that's just the wrong thing.
I agree with you. Well, when I see the amount of, we went out yesterday. We didn't really go out. We went paddleboarding. So
where'd you go paddleboarding at?
Austin Lake. We went paddleboarding, which is
so. Did you have this incredible urge to go to the dojo? Because you have to go by the dojo to go to Austin Lake.
I didn't have an incredible urge to go to the dojo because jiu-jitsu has been meeting outside doing weapons work. So I've already been to the dojo.
Very good, Grasshopper.
Yeah.
You do good by showing support for the dojo.
Yeah,
Very
so
good.
last night. So
tell
yesterday,
me more story about you paddleboarding and doing stroke. Tell me about stroking.
Yeah, anyway, so yesterday, one of our friends said, hey, do you want to go? Well, let me backtrack. She had texted us, one of our friends, and said, hey, do you want to do something this weekend? She texted me about it. And I said, well, yeah, sure. I'm off this weekend, but I'm not going to go do stuff, like in the traditional sense of the word, like paddleboarding or something would be okay because you're out on a lake. You're not right next to each other, and we're not in close proximity, and we can still wear masks if we're in close proximity. But basically, if you're paddleboarding, you're not right next to somebody.
Okay, fair enough. I would agree with that. I've seen a lot of paddleboarders out there.
Well, then I'm at work, and she did a little group text between me and the wife and said, "Hey, do you want to go out to this restaurant later on tonight to meet for drinks?" And of course, I'm working, and I texted my wife and I said, "Hey, can you text her back and politely decline and say that's not fucking happening because we're not going to be in close proximity. We're definitely not going to go out to eat."
So wait a minute. You left your wife. You let your wife text her when you could have actually texted her?
I wish that you could follow me at work and you would see that I don't even have time to pee.
No, I understand that. But were you paddleboarding at the time, or was this at work when you got this text?
I was at work, like I just
okay.
said.
Okay.
I was at work, and I texted my wife and I said, "Can you politely tell her that we're not going to be going out to dinner?" I'm like, we don't even hang out with my family, who I haven't seen. Like on Father's Day, it was my mom's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Got her a box of stuff. I got her a bag, gift bag of stuff. I got her flowers. They had a party at my brother's house, and they wanted us to come. And we explained to them too. I'm like, we are not going to be around everybody for hours when my wife and I see patients all day long and are exposed to people all day long. We're not going to expose ourselves to other people. It's not that I think that those other people are going to get me sick.
Mm-hmm. Understood. So do you think you're a little bit paranoid over this entire thing?
Have you seen the numbers?
No. I've seen the numbers. Do I think I asked you, do you think you're paranoid?
No, I'm not paranoid.
Okay.
I'm clearly smarter than the majority of the people out there. That's why it keeps spreading. Compare our country to other countries. We are getting banned from going to other countries.
We really didn't want to go there anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I'm not paranoid. And the reason why is because look around. This has not been contained. If people were doing what I'm doing, it would be contained. But they're not.
So what
they're
you're saying
doing
is
stupid shit.
Okay, you heard it from the Beaveman people. You need to paddleboard more.
I'm about 5 seconds away from ending our podcast today, Ronz. My point was, we said, my wife explained it to her and said, "Hey, we're not going to be doing that. This is why." People just don't get it. You don't get it.
No, I get it. I really do.
I don't think you do, because if I do the math, if I'm seeing an average of 33 to 35 patients a day, and I work 3 to 4 days a week, but I don't just see those people, almost all of them come in with family members. How many people am I coming in contact with every day I work?
33 divided by 7 is a number 4, 5, 6, maybe 7. No. B-Man.
60 to 70 people a day I'm coming in contact with. Not the same people. Not the same people. Multiple days. So on average, of the people that I see per pay period, which is 2 weeks per pay period, patients I'm seeing on average about 210 patients. And most of them bring 1 or 2 people with them. So I'm coming in contact with anywhere from 210 to maybe 400 people a week who are not wearing masks, who are not taking precautions, who are still coming up positive for the coronavirus, but I'm not, because I'm taking precautions that I've been taking since February before they were mandated, because I had a gut feeling this was going to be bad while everybody else was playing it off.
Beaveman, I completely understand where you're coming from. All joking aside, I understand exactly your precautions. I exactly understand where you're coming from. I'm busting your ass. You're right. But you're doing exactly what it takes to be safe. And you're right. Once again, I will kiss your ass here. That you are exactly right. More people should take precautions. More people should wear a mask. And more people, if you have to go somewhere and you don't need that person with you, have them wait out in the car. Right? Wear a mask. I completely agree with you. I won't bust your ass on this anymore, but I completely understand you. By the way, to our listeners, if you're not taking precautions, please do, because you hear the Beaveman. He's pissed off at you. You don't want him mad at you. Make him happy. Make him real happy. Right? Take care of
But
yourself.
again, like I said about going about the precautions, my office is not following the mandated regulations that were passed down by the executive order for the governor. So not only do I have to deal with people who aren't following the rules, my work isn't following the rules either. So I'm more exposed than an office where they're following the rules.
I realize that you're playing Russian roulette every day you walk in. You don't know if it's going to be your last day or the start of the virus on you. I completely get that. I really do.
So when people say, like you just said, don't you think you're being paranoid? No, I think I'm being smarter than the majority of the Americans. And
I think so too.
Keep posting their bullshit about saying, oh, the only reason why we have such high positive rate is because we have increased testing. Yes and no. In South Korea, they tested way more than we tested and didn't have the same amount of positive rates as us, which means they contained the virus very well and still had increased testing. We haven't contained the virus. That's why we have positive results. And then you have the president saying, go ahead and scale back on the testing because we don't want positive results at his rally.
It's like saying, here, let me, excuse me. Sorry about that. It's like not looking at porn saying you're cured of watching porn. No, it's not going to work like that. Or it might. I don't know. I was going with an analogy before I coughed. But yeah, that's if you don't see it, it's not happening routine, and that's bullshit. That really is.
Which is typically an American thing to do. Here's a good story.
Here's a good story.
Here's a good story. Woman in Minneapolis rides topless. Now that makes me interested right away.
Okay.
Unless I see what she looks like and I'm not impressed. After being cited for being topless on a beach 2 years ago, Helena Howard learned the state had no clearly defined law that requires women to wear clothing that covers their breasts.
Okay.
So she was at a beach, she got cited, but the state itself has no law saying that you are required to wear clothing that covers your breasts. So the Minneapolis Park Board Ordinance refrains from allowing visitors over 10 to purposely show their genitals, or I don't know why you would purposefully show your genitals.
Wow, she is freaking hot.
Or for women, female breasts.
She's hot.
Who's hot?
This Helena Howard.
How do you know it's the right person?
I'm looking right at her tits.
Okay, all right then. Going on with the story. Learning this, Howard began riding her bike topless and takes full advantage of sunny days in which she takes topless rides feet away from the parks and parkways where she can be sighted. Her motivation is to bring awareness that it is legal, a right for women, and to fight sexualization of women's bodies.
All right.
You've got a local ordinance that says you can't do it, but the state itself says you can. So as long as she's not on park property, she can do what she's doing and not be charged.
I think there's also in Canada, women can go topless if they want on public places.
Well, I mean, it's the absence of a law in this instance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So because they don't have one saying that you can't, she can't. But the park ordinance says you can't. So now I'm going to have to look up this person while Ron is talking.
Well, the thing is, if men can go topless, and believe me, I've seen some men that have A, B, and C cups out there without a bra on. Why couldn't women do it? We tend to sexualize women so much that it's almost embarrassing. And I went overseas and you see topless beaches. Now, the first time that you see a woman's boobs out in public, you're like, wow. But and there are some women and men that deserve to have them covered up. Trust me. I mean, that tattoo of a flower should not have that long of a stem anymore on it. But I don't know. It depends on what society thinks, but I don't care. I honestly don't. If you're going to go topless, you're going to go topless, right? Just don't be so ugly, I guess, if that. I mean, if I can walk around topless and not be pointed out, and I have A cups, I think, Now I'm feeling myself, which is kind of weird and awkward. But really, what does it matter?
So the picture I'm looking at is this the right one? I don't think this is the right person.
Okay. Is she on a bike with pink shorts?
No.
Okay.
This one in the picture, this particular picture, the person's chest is covered by a bike seat.
Oh, wow. What is she doing with that bike seat?
She's talking. It looks like she's talking to a reporter. What did you type to find this?
I typed nude hot women who ride bikes.
Oh, come on.
Okay. I typed in her name. Right? I did. I just typed in her name and that's what it got me. And I'm trying to send you a message here. Open conversation.
Okay, I see her. It looks like she's got a mullet.
That could be. Could be.
Yeah, that's a straight up. Looks like a straight up mullet.
Could be.
I'm not a fan of the mullet. Let me tell you, not a fan. But if she wants to do that, go ahead and knock yourself out. But I agree, it's all within reason.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't care. Right?
I don't either.
If you see, yeah.
And on the beaches in Germany when I was there, pretty much everybody was topless.
And there's the rub that you and I have been overseas, and we got culture shocked. We really did. When you go over there, sex over there is pretty much out in the open. You come back to the States, it's a taboo thing, right? I was so culture shocked when I got back to America. I was just thrown back by it. I was just like, wow, this can't be the country I live in to say that sex is that bad. We had high teen pregnancies here. We didn't talk about sex. It was always in a dark room. You go overseas, they have certain areas in their towns where they have a red light district. If you don't know what that is, look it up. They have certain sex shops. They're open about their sexuality, and they have a low pregnancy, low STD rate, which was really cool. So if this
when you have a legal red light district, I was having this discussion with the daughter yesterday. I don't remember what we were talking about. But I was saying, yeah, there's actual districts and it's regulated. They have licenses. They have actual testing that they have to have done in order to maintain their license. And you can walk through those districts. I've walked through those districts, and it's funny because you'll see them, like their boyfriends or their husbands or whatever, come and pick them up in a nice car.
Yeah.
Or drop them off for work.
It's the oldest profession in the world, we'll say that. But yeah, it's not this hey, you want to make a couple of extra dollars? It's a legitimate business.
Yeah, a legitimate business with a legitimate, I guess you would say, transaction.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's open. It's open. Now, you know about it. You can avoid it, right? It's one of those things, right? You don't have to take a blind eye to it, but you can avoid it. And it's out in the open. Vegas is the only place where I know where it's legal. And
it's not legal in Vegas. It's not legal in Vegas. It's legal in Reno.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, it's illegal in Vegas.
I didn't know
Reno is one of the only cities that it's legal in.
Reno, okay.
Which is in Nevada.
Wow, I thought it was like in Minnesota, but yeah, I'm glad. And wow. So, what is your take on this?
Which part? On the riding topless?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, let her do it.
Yeah, same here. Right?
That doesn't hurt us in any way.
Of course, you get those old guys on Viagra. It might just cause them a heart attack if there's a sudden blood loss from the brain. Right?
Yeah, probably not.
They'll
I'm sure they'll
out.
be fine. It's the risk they take to be able to get an erection anytime they want, I suppose.
Now, are we approaching that really too soon in our lives? I mean, I turned 55. I mean, if I wake up with an erection, am I going to die of a heart attack?
No, because you woke up with an erection. So you should be doing okay. If you can wake up with an erection, you should be fine. That means you're still getting good blood circulation down there.
As long as it's not at a bar or out in an alleyway and things have not transpired, I'm okay with that, I guess.
Exactly.
So what's our third story?
So our last story today is Roomba robot vacuum sales increased dramatically despite pandemic. Not something that I thought would be an increase in sales.
I could see that happening. I really
Really?
could.
You think more people are going to buy robot vacuums during the pandemic?
Oh yeah.
Why is
Would
that?
you? It's simple logic. Why pick up the dirt that might be infected when you can let a robot do it? Robots don't get sick. They don't get. They might get infected with a virus, but it won't be a pandemic virus. Of course, this is how the Terminator started, so it could be a precursor to them taking over. Of course, then all the robots would have dirt on us because they would know more about us and making it easier for them to take over the world. But I digress. Yeah,
So you're saying robots would have dirt on us, as in literal dirt?
Sure, why not? I'll
Right.
go that. But the thing is, why would you clean your own floor up of the crap if you can get something else to do it? It's easy.
Well, anyway, let me read the story.
Why don't you read the
Let me
story?
read the story. CEO Cullen Engel, not to be confused with Colin,
Or
revealed
Macaulay Cullen?
revealed in a recent statement that their second quarter financial statement will be a lot better than previously expected, as they predict a quarterly revenue of $260 million or more. That's a lot of Roombas. The company previously suggested their earnings to be an estimate as of $193 million, so they're shy by about $67 million in their estimate. That's pretty impressive. One of the top grossing products that showed exponential growth being their $1,000 Series S9 Roomba, a well-memed product that has gone viral on the internet, especially for animals who enjoy taking joyrides on these mobile robot vacuums. And if you want to have a good time watching animals ride the Roomba, you can look up the video called Roomba Animals. Funny videos of pets and Roombas. And you can see little cats and little dogs riding little Roombas. I got dogs and hairs everywhere. Everywhere. And I'm looking at it right now.
Why would I buy a $1,000 Roomba for my dog or cat?
Well, they didn't buy it for their dog or cat. They bought it to clean their rooms, and their dogs and cats just happen to be hopping on them and riding around, and they videotape them.
So we're creating lazy animals.
I think they're having fun. It's not like they were staying on them all day and they're obese and the Roomba's not being able to move anymore. Check out the video. It's cute. You got little dogs, little cats, little puppies hopping on the Roombas, chilling, wandering around, having a good time.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this question since you brought it up, and I've been doing it too. I've been going to the dojo once or twice a week. We've been working out outside. We're well over 6 feet away from each other because we're doing a lot of stuff with the bow, which is a 6 foot stick, basically.
Okay.
A lot of stuff like that. And
in case you didn't know, I have a black belt in Okinawan weapons too.
Yeah, in case you guys didn't know that, it's important for you to know
I
that
am a martial artist.
Ronz is a martial artist and has a black belt in more than one style. So good for you. Does it mean that he can kick someone's ass? Not really.
No, not at all.
That's not what it means, people. So if you have a friend that has a black belt or a family member that has a black belt, do not go up and fuck with them just for fun. Because, no, you probably could kick their ass, but then you would have some warped idea of what it means to be a black belt. It means we're good students. Good listeners. We pay attention to detail.
Sometimes.
But more than likely, I probably could kick your ass.
Oh, yeah, I've seen you spar.
Anywho, I've been going to the dojo. I've been wearing a mask out there. It's pretty fucking hot because we've been doing our shit outside. And the original class times were supposed, and this is why I was cool with it, because it's hot. I was like, oh, well, we're only going to work out for like an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine with wearing a mask in the sun, working out outside for an hour and 15 minutes. And I think that's reasonable. What's not reasonable is yesterday, if my sensei is listening to this, maybe let's keep the class times what we predicted. Yesterday we worked out for 2 hours, and I'm wearing a mask the whole time. That's not a fun thing to do. I'm not a ninja, so I'm not used to. I wear a mask at work, but I'm not working in the sun, swinging a stick for 2 hours. And I don't
Okay.
really want that. I don't really want that weird sun mark from wearing my ninja mask either.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why Batman doesn't have that sun mark.
Well, he goes out at night.
Well,
His
isn't
prime
the
hours. His prime hours are at night.
okay? But
Crime in Gotham. Crime in Gotham. The peak time is 2 a.m.
are you sure it's 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you are a Batman fanatic.
Yeah, he actually says it in one of the. I can't remember which comic it says where it talks about the prime hours for crime, and I think they listed Metropolis, uh,
Okay.
Star City, Gotham, and what's the other one where
Central City.
Central City.
Now, you're an adult like me, or
Yeah,
would
I'm an
pretend
adult.
to be an adult.
No.
Is it comic books or graphic novels?
Well, I'm not an expert by any means on comics, but it's my understanding, and this is how I thought it was. If it's a graphic novel is based on its length, and if it's a compilation. So in other words, if I took a year of Nightwing and put it in a book, that's technically a graphic novel of Nightwing, even though it's a collection of the comics all in one book.
Ah,
But I don't know how Sin City was originally done, but Sin City is considered a graphic novel. But it has
Frank Miller did that,
Miller's
didn't
Sin
he?
City is considered a graphic novel, but it's really each book is kind of like a long comic. I don't know if it was ever like separate comics or if it was released as separate books. I have all the
Okay.
I have the complete or the first one, but they're all just books. So I don't know if they were ever released like, monthly or every weekly.
Okay.
I don't know how
Okay.
that's done. Or
Okay.
like The Watchmen, that book is like a graphic novel, but I don't know. I always thought I think there's more than one definition of it. I don't know. What do you think? You're a comic book expert by far compared to me.
Oh no, I'm not a comic book expert, but I know what I like, and that's the one thing. As we got older, they weren't toys; they were action figures, right? So,
Well,
because
depending on what it was.
well, see, back in the day when I was growing up, you were labeled a geek, a nerd, you got your ass kicked, right? And our rise to power was slow. Now we rule the world. So those terminologies are now applied, but they're no longer, we're no longer shunned by them. Oh, you collect and read comics. Oh, ho, ho, you know, you know, you're weak. You're a nerd. No, now
My
I'm,
both said otherwise.
yeah, exactly. Oh, jeez. Ah, that tries to
Taste my stick.
Yeah, but now it's we're smarter. We understand that, and actually, some of those comics that, if you kept them in pristine condition, are worth more than whatever the guys that picked on you is making.
Yeah, true.
So it
Yeah, I
is.
think that honestly, it was better to peak later in life than to peak early. And
Uh,
that's why, a lot of people will say, "Oh, high school was the best time of my life." I'm like, high school was the worst time of my life. I fucking hated high school.
Same
I
here.
don't even consider it a part of my life. And actually, I like to tell people that my birthday was actually the day I joined the Army.
You said that before. Go Army.
And so I don't consider that life before too very important to me. But hey,
No, I understand.
so yeah. Yeah. So what do you think of the definition is? What do you think? What do you consider the difference?
I
Are they
think,
all the same or are they different?
yeah,
I
I
didn't
think
think
they're
it
the
was
same.
I don't consider it an insult thing saying, "Oh, I read graphic novels." I always thought it was just a difference by compilation or size of the book itself.
I always thought it was the same. I really did. Now,
Oh, okay. Well,
your
I mean, it might
definition, I
it might
understand.
be. I have no idea. I really don't know.
Your definition is just as good as mine, right? It's just, I guess it's how you look at it. That's the way I looked at it. And all I know is it can be it can be one of my more expensive hobbies if I ever jump back into it.
Well, it's really I figured out a good way to make it affordable, I
How's
guess you
that?
could say. Um, it's a little frustrating though. I have the DC app and I buy that for the whole year.
Okay.
And with the DC app, all of their shows you get for free also. So whatever they've put on the site, you can stream the TV shows. So I've been watching, they've had the The Titans, which is their take on the Teen Titans, which is a solid show that's had a season or two. They just released the second season of Doom Patrol. So you get to see all that stuff. And Harley Quinn's animated series is one of the best animated series
They
I've ever.
started showing that on the Sci-Fi. I thought that was
It is
great
very
thing.
good. Oh my gosh, it is really good. The writing is excellent. So, and also every time they release a new animated movie, you can see it, and they've got a good compilation of the old ones. They've got Wonder Woman's TV show on there. They've got Shazam, the old TV show on there, and they've got, of course, comics. The problem is when you go to read a series of comics, if you want to read 30, 40, 50, 60 comics a day, you could, but they might skip. So if you wanted to read the new 52, it could start 9 comics in. So you might not get the first 9. And I think they do. Obviously, they probably do it on purpose because they're like, well, if they really want to read that, they'll go buy the first 9. So not every single comic is uploaded there, but you can read comics all fucking day long. And if you're one of those people who spends a lot of money on comics, if you spend, I know people who spend like maybe $20 a month on comics or more.
That's low.
Yeah, or more. And
Okay.
so I pay, I think it's $79 for the year. And I buy that as my birthday present. The first year I got it, my kids bought it for me for my birthday. So, I mean, at least that way I can watch as many shows as I want. I think the problem, what's going to end up happening, though, I would imagine, is because DC is owned by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is going to have an app, and either they'll absorb the DC app, or they'll get rid of the DC app. I don't know what will happen.
Do you think digital versus paper comics are better?
I love it. I really like it because comic book artists are fucking amazing. They're pencilers, the people who do the color, the writing, the way they make each panel of the comic is so brilliant and amazing. But when you read it on a digital device, you can read it panel by panel. And you can see all that beautiful detail of what they've done. I mean, you can still read it as a page at a time if you want to, but I like to read it panel by panel. And man, you just look at how wonderful their artistry is.
Well, I've seen both. I know a local artist. His artwork is phenomenal. He's done a couple of comics or graphic novels. I don't care which one. And I've seen him work on both digital and paper. And I always thought, to me, that feel of paper when you get to turn it and everything, I thought that was fantastic. Now, the only thing I don't like is, my big shout out here is that as you get into the storyline, now you've got to go buy the next one, but it's not in the same genre. It's in another genre. I'm like, dude, really, if you wanted to make more sales, I don't care about the other character's life. I just want to know what happens here. Make it, don't make it a one shot, but keep me intrigued with one comic going. That's it.
Yeah, if you wanted to do that, why wouldn't you just release each one of those in that same series with that character? Just release the same book. So if I'm watching a matchup with where they've got Batman, Nightwing, Batgirl, and I'm thinking about the one that they did with one of the new 52, and I'm like, that's fine, but just release that same comic in the series I'm already buying. If you're going to release that, just release that one in Batgirl, release that same one in Batman, release that same one in Nightwing, so I don't have to go buy Batgirl's subscription or whatever.
Or,
Yeah, I agree. I don't need that. I hate that. It drives me crazy. More often than not, I'll just be like, well, I guess I'm skipping that one. I don't care. But when you talk about graphic art, like you said, with the paper and everything, I do prefer to read a book in book form, unless it's a medical book, because I don't care and I'm not that interested anyway, so I'm okay with reading that on a digital device. But if it's a book I'm really interested in reading, I still like to read it on paper. I think that we may have lost Ron.
Oh, I'm here. Are you there?
Oh, you're there. Okay. He froze for a second.
I'm here.
All right. So clearly,
No,
you
I'm here.
still clearly you like the paper, but I agree with you. It is nice to see. I think it's just nice to see how talented people are on paper and on digital devices. Our
Oh,
squad,
I agree.
I mean, our artwork is done on a digital device.
Well, that's fantastic. So is our music, by the way. A big shout out.
The Ron is fading. He fades in and out. He was about to say a big shout out to Skylar. Hey, nice job. Oh, that reminds me that we do have to do some sort of. I'm going to have to do some sort of a
Up the
retraction.
sky and what? Why? What happened?
So on our last podcast, we were talking about people that we would like to have on our podcast, and I did a shout out to the band Wayland, which I would still like Wayland to do a podcast with us if they get a chance. I know they're having a hard. I don't know if they're having a hard time, but with the pandemic, all of our artists, our musicians out there, of course, a lot of their shows are getting canceled or what are there because of the pandemic. And it's understandable why, because the venues are always obviously crowded and there's going to be a lot of people in close proximity. So support your artists as best you can if you want to. A lot of them you can probably donate to Patreon or they'll do concerts online. So go ahead and join those and give them some fun so they keep doing the stuff that brings us happiness. But I also did a shout out to Hoodie Allen and invited him to be on our podcast. He's a rapper and apparently he's been coming under scrutiny for possibly having some inappropriate relationships with underage folks. And so I am now rescinding that invitation. But I also want to say this, and it's very important that I say this. It's important that people should have the presumption of innocence and not the presumption of guilt. However, because I do have some inside information that I'm not going to disclose, that is why I'm rescinding my earlier invitation to Hoodie Allen to be on our podcast. Not that he listens to our podcast anyway, but if he did, sorry, Mr. Allen, you're no longer welcome on our podcast.
Wow, that is harsh. So,
is it though?
know,
how many people am I reaching that might listen to him anyway?
I put it out for Wayland, Jack Black. I'm sorry Jack Black hasn't got back to us, or Weird Al. I'm hoping they do. So
I'll hold my breath.
Okay. So I didn't know about any of the legal problems or problems he might have. So I will let you spearhead that, if that. So I was hoping that, well, we should get, there is another up and coming musical artist I'd like to have on the podcast at one point. And I think you can reach out and get to him. I think that person might be on, and it's Skylar. I think he might be on the podcast at one point, or if we can get him on. I know he's got a busy schedule and everything. If you've heard any of his music, he's a great that. I thought we could give him some shout out and put him on. Are you there?
I am here. I'm just listening to you. I'm just listening to you on. All right. Well, special thanks to our new staff writer, Emerald Fimbres, out there in West Covina, California. Also, if we have any listeners who would like to submit jokes or topics that they would like us to discuss on the podcast, please feel free to do so. Please check out our website at what is it?
Slaptailnation.com.
Slaptailnation.com.
And what about coffee? Do we like coffee still?
I enjoy coffee. You know what I've done, speaking of coffee, is I've been using a Keurig for years. When those first came out, my family got me one on Father's Day, and I think the first one I had for, let's see, my daughter's going to be 14 in September.
Good luck with that.
I believe they got me one when she was 2, so I had it for quite a while, and just replaced it within the past couple years. And I have come to realize that the Keurig is not making the coffee taste good for me anymore. I just don't feel like it's. I feel like a lot of the coffee's watered down in the K-cups. So I stopped using the Keurig. It's okay. It's there for convenience. I'm not saying anything bad about the Keurig. Keurig, you've done your job. Thank you for all that you've done.
Do you ever clean it out?
Yeah. Second part of that is, so I started doing the French press, and you can buy a nice little French press.
I happen to have one.
They work really well if you've got the time. You can let it sit in there, let it steep, and get some nice dark coffee. I like that also. But you know what? The convenience isn't there for me, Ron. So what I did back in the day, my grandma used to have a percolator, and I kind of want to buy a percolator because they're fun.
Are you talking the old stovetop where you put it on the stove?
Remember the old percolators? You plugged them in, and they had the little clear top at the top.
Yeah.
Clear thing. You could see the little bubble at the top, and they would make that little noise.
There are two ways of doing a percolator. There was one where you just put it on your stovetop, and it would heat it up and percolate the coffee that way, or boil it. and then there's the plug-in way.
Yeah, my grandma had a plug-in one.
Okay.
That's what we used. And I thought about buying one of those, but then I'm like, you know what? They are great, but it's the same thing. It'll probably take a little bit of time. And if I got a percolator, it's a nostalgia thing for me. I don't want to buy one of the new ones. I'd like to get an old one. I'd like to go to my parents' house and see if the percolator is up in the attic of my dad's pole barn, because I bet it might be. So I just went and got the regular old Mr. Coffee maker. I got a little one, got the tiny little one, and I've been doing my coffee in that. And by gosh, it does taste better than a Keurig.
Wow.
Sorry.
So as you get older, you have to get a percolator, and now you're going to start reminiscing back to when the horse and buggy days were. That was the best way to get around.
I don't know, man. If you can remember, you know how your brain, it's pretty amazing the things that your brain will remember. But I can remember drinking coffee with my grandmother. I don't honestly know why she would let me have a cup of coffee, because she died before I was 12. And so I would have a cup of coffee with her occasionally. And the coffee with my grandma, now it might not have been that the coffee was actually delicious. It might just have been spending time with my grandmother. But in my mind, that coffee was better than the majority of the coffee I've ever had. And my grandma made it in a percolator. So, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Spending time with people that you like. Once again, back to the humor thing, is if it's enjoyable.
See, my grandma wasn't
more.
funny. You see, my grandma wasn't funny.
Yeah, but I'm saying your grandmother was enjoyable.
My grandmother was fucking hilarious and a
Well,
badass.
Tell us a joke that she would have loved to hear.
I don't know. She was, I can't think of a joke that my grandma would love to hear. She was just funny, man. She would swear. She smoked cigarettes. She drank coffee. And she didn't have, and she was probably like, I'm guessing my grandma was maybe 5'2", maybe weighed 120 pounds, maybe. I'd say she was like about 115.
Okay.
But the people were frightened of her because she was a badass. She'd grab somebody if she had to. So
did you drink coffee out of love or fear?
Love. She was a badass. Grandma was awesome. And she drove a Ford Maverick Grabber, and I don't know if anybody knows what those are.
I do not.
Oh, it was a version of, you remember with the muscle cars, the Camaro muscle cars and the Chevy Nova muscle car of the late 60s, early 70s. A Ford Maverick Grabber was the version of the muscle car, kind of like a Camaro. And she had a 1972 Ford Maverick Grabber that was an 8-cylinder 302 size engine. And that thing was fucking fast.
Wow.
And
I just pulled up the images of what a Ford Maverick Grabber is. Your grandmother was a badass if she drove one of these.
Yes, she was. And that is my dream car. I used to have it. I got hers when she died because she always wanted me to have it. And so my goal is to have a new one. I mean, have a rebuilt one before I die. But anyway, and she would let us, me and my brother, crawl in through the window like we were in the Dukes of Hazzard.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, coffee nostalgic time, badass grandmother. Here it is.
Did you guys go on any adventures on that?
Talking about how cool she was.
You guys do any adventures?
My grandmother would clock time from her house to my parents' house to see how fast she could get there.
Holy shit! This is one badass grandmother.
Yep.
Now I'm going to ask this completely.
I've seen her go almost 120 miles per hour in that car.
So I'm going to ask this, and this is probably free. I know for me it would be. I don't know if it would be for you, but did you wear seatbelts in the car?
No. Did not wear seatbelts. I actually didn't know that it had seatbelts until it was my car, and I was like, "Oh, this thing's got seatbelts." And they were the fixed ones, so they didn't retract. They were just they did come across your chest and across your waist, but there was no give. It didn't have the retraction device in it. It was just fixed, so it had to be sized for you. So if you got into an accident, you didn't go forward at all. It just stopped you where you were.
Wow.
Yeah. So one time we were at the house. My grandma was there and she was visiting, and she had just left. And my mom's like, "Oh, she forgot this." And my dad's like, "No problem, I'll catch her." So he runs out, and he had a Buick Wildcat, which is a pretty fast car, but it's a pretty big, heavy car. And he couldn't catch her. He never got to her. He didn't make it to her until she was already home. For one thing, she drove fucking fast and he drove fucking slow. There was no way he was going to catch her. He did have a fast car, and I don't know if he even broke the speed limit, but there was no way he was going to catch her.
Yeah, a Buick Wildcat is a tank compared to what your grandmother was driving.
Yeah. And she drove fast and he drove like a little bitch. So there was no way he was going to catch her. Like I said, she would clock her time. She tried to see how fast she could get home from her house. She was fast. Good job.
Awesome. Sounds like Grandma was awesome and a badass.
That's what the Slaptail Squad is for, people. It's to reminisce about Grandma.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. How much of a badass?
I was actually driving on my way to work, and there's a stretch between stoplights before you get on the highway. And as I turned onto the stretch, I could see a car pull out of the gas station down the road from me. I was like, oh, shit, that's a Ford Maverick Grabber. I'm like, and I'm very jealous if I see one. I very rarely see one. And sure as shit, somebody in Galesburg's got a Ford Maverick Grabber redone, rebuilt one, and it is fucking beautiful. It is like gray and I think it was, what was it? Yeah, it was like gray or silver with black racing stripes. It was pretty badass.
So, sounds like it.
Lucky motherfucker. Hopefully I'll get one someday.
Well, if the podcast takes off and we start making a lot of revenue, I think
my job's actually secure or I don't die from some idiot exposing me in some stupid way.
I think my ultimate play toy, right, would be a fully decked out CJ7 with possibly a lift kit with scuba gear. Right, I have been wanting to go scuba diving. I do snorkeling here and there, but I want to learn how to scuba. That's the thing.
Well, you don't actually scuba inside your Jeep if you get one. You don't.
I don't know. If you bottom it out, you might in the lake.
Right. You might have to, but hopefully that's not going to happen. I had a CJ7.
Wow.
But my ex-wife made me sell it because she didn't feel like it was an appropriate family car. She had her car. I had my CJ7, and she made me sell it. And here's the real bitch of the thing. My son loved that Jeep. He loved it. Loved riding back in it when he was a little guy.
Okay.
Here's what really sucked. She left me 2 months later.
For a guy with a CJ7?
No, but the point is, I didn't care that she left, but by God, she made me get rid of my CJ7.
I had an industrial accident at work, and I called my sister one night, and so she borrowed my stepfather's Jeep, who he wouldn't sell it to me. And I said, I need you to go pick up RJ and my wife, and then from there, I'll give you instructions what I need you to do. So she went and got them late at night for me, right? So they could actually go back to pick up my car from where I was working. And all RJ could rant about and rave about was riding in the back of that Jeep because it was so damn cool.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought, that's what I want. I want one of those. I've always wanted a CJ5 or a CJ7 though. That's always one of my dream vehicles. Right. And eventually I'll get one.
The only difference is the door, really too much. Still made by AM General then.
Really?
All right, so that's car talk. It's car talk with the Ronz and the Beaveman. Mm-hmm. And this whole conversation was brought up because of coffee. And yes, Ronz, I do like coffee.
You do.
And, did you wanted to plug the coffee? Is that what your
well? Carrie's Scars and Stripes coffee. There's a link somewhere on our Facebook page, and we'll put one on our website possibly. I say possibly, I'll get to it. But it helps and prevents vets suicide, right? Hopefully it does prevent that. We need to address this sometimes as a serious subject. What can be said, what can be done. Every day, my mantra this week, and by the way, let me interject this real quick on a side note, that every month I'm going to challenge myself to do something different. So like I said, this month was I don't want to yell. I've been challenging myself. I'll probably stick with it. I don't know what next month will be, but challenge yourself to be a better person every day, people. So if you see someone in distress, if they don't want your help, all right, they don't want your help, but at least make the attempt to be a better person for them. If not for them, for yourself. And if you can't do that, fuck off. No one, I don't need you. Right?
Exactly.
Be a good person.
That's a big takeaway from all this. If you don't like it, Ron says, fuck you.
Well, quite not like that, right? But I am on Carrie Scars and Stripes Coffee, and I like this picture where there's a guy in boot camp. It looks like an army picture, and it goes across the board. This kid is looking straight ahead, and the drill sergeant's behind him, and the caption is, "He's behind me, isn't he?" And we all know, if you were in the military, if you got your drill sergeant, if you got your drill sergeant behind you, you don't turn around. You don't fucking turn around. The world's on fire. You're on fire. You're dying. You do not turn around and make eye contact.
Like the
You
hot
look
breath
forward.
of a bull on the back of your neck.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right.
Fun times.
Yeah. And if he bumps you, it's your goddamn fault that you ran into him and you are in trouble.
Good times. Good people.
Good times.
They were
Good
doing my
times.
drill sergeants. They were funny. I mean, I don't think they were intending to be funny, but I thought they were funny. Probably why I got in trouble for laughing a lot.
I never laughed.
I did a lot of push-ups. Let me tell you that. Did a lot of push-ups. All right, well, that's it for me, the Beaveman, saying everybody out there, stay safe, wear your fucking masks, believe it's real, don't believe the hype, people. It's fucking real. Let's get rid of this shit. There's a reason why other countries aren't letting Americans come there anymore. It's destroying the film industry. We got to get the boy back to work. Got to get him out of the basement. Got to get him back. Got to get him out of the basement. Get him a job.
I thought you were talking about another film industry, so we'll leave it at that.
It's not about dentistry. It's not about dentistry.
That why would you go with dentistry?
No, my teeth. I want your teeth, man.
Oh, I love how you try to clean that up.
All right, that's it for me, the Beaveman.
And he's checking out from that.
Adios, smooch fuckos.
And this is the Ronz. Stay safe, stay sane. Talk to you later.